$7 versus 115. When I've got all of this other stuff sitting around there, right? With 100 you picked up. Sorry, 12 you picked up. You didn't pick up 100. No, nobody would do that. Hey, it's Chris. Let's do this Gen Con already? We're there. Yeah. Games that I think you should not buy, but have on your radar. Games that are going to come out of Gen Con with hype, with hotness, that are going to get a bunch of clicks, views, and eyeballs all over the place. And why you should know about them, why you should be maybe interested, and why you should maybe pass on them as well at the same time. Let's go. Got my hint water. Let's do it. You know, when I sit down to do these videos, every time I sit down and I go, oh my gosh, I got to do another one of these videos. Because truth be told, when you look at these, invariably, when you see a list of the games that are going to be there, you know, when I look at this list, and why I do my list a little differently, I guess, I don't know, at least it feels that way, is games that I'm going, this is when you are first being able to get them, right? Not games that have been out for 6 months, or games that have been widely available for a year, or have been widely available even sometimes to crowdfunding backers for a while. But it's becoming harder and harder to dice that out, because sometimes you have publishers that are like, oh yeah, we'll be there, and we'll have tons of copies because it's been out for a while, Slay the Spire, or, you know, whatever else along those lines. And then you'll have other ones that are like, well, we're going to be there and have 50 copies of this game. And if you don't get one of those 50 copies on each of the 3 days of Gen Con, then you're not going to get it. And you're going to have to wait 6 months, because that doesn't help you. That helps drives the freaking marketing FOMO. But that's also why companies do it, right? And I'm not saying one side or the other in particular, because you see it with crowdfunding where people ship over, air freight over these copies, and you see it with retail where they do a bunch of pre-production copies, you know, the first batch, and they do the same thing. Because if you're like me and you're watching this, you're not probably going to Gen Con. You probably don't have any chance to go to Gen Con. So really what you're looking for is, okay, when these things become available on the secondary market, at the retail side of things, widely, whatever that may be, am I interested? But if I demo something that's not even going to be available for 6 months, guess what? Hype and hotness cycle is going to be passed over with that one 3 or 4 times over. So, right? Preamble over. So where are we leading? Well, we're leading with the ones that are going to get the most attention, truth be told, right? That's what people do in these videos, myself included. I'm not going to discount that or deny that. Arcs, right? Arcs. We're going to start with Arcs, because Arcs is getting all the hype. Everyone loves Arcs. Arcs is for everyone. No. Right? Truth be told, I don't know if I'm going to get a review out anytime soon. It is Golden Goose, if you will. The Emperor's New Clothes board games for me. For me, not for anybody else. Not speaking for anybody else, not talking about what anyone else has ever said in that sense, but people like it. But it's going to be just as inaccessible as the other, you know, PAX Premier, Roots, Oaths, you know? It is, truth be told. I don't think that the rules are that difficult in the sense, but the gameplay dynamics, it's not going to be a one-off like Oath. I don't think it's any easier in that sense as a accessibility factor, because of the dynamics that people have to know. The rules, right? I'm not talking about the rules. I can teach anybody the rules, but the dynamics of how you're going to get the experience to define whether or not this game is for you, with the aggression and the leading of the tricks, if you will, ish, rounds, those sorts of things are not going to be captured by casuals like myself in a game, right? Because if you're like me, you play most games and you go, okay, you know, again, right? I'm not any good at them, but within one game, easily, I can start to see all of the gears and all of the pieces and all of the interwoven lockedness between them, right? I can't do it well, but I start to go, okay, right? And you can, not just, again, those rules, but the dynamics of how it is going to play out on the table. The highs and the lows. And this one isn't going to be as easily done in that way, I would make the argument. Again, I'm the outlier, so don't listen to me. But that's going to be the big thing. And because this one has gotten the most hype between, you know, probably the first 3 of the year. This one, Slay the Spire and Earthborn Rangers. You know, people are going to be clamoring at this one. They're going to be clamoring for it. But if you're patient, I'm going to make the argument that just like Root and just like Oath, it's going to follow similar suit. You're going to have a lot of people that are going to think they're going to be able to play it and won't be able to. So once it dies down, again, this is what I said with Slay the Spire, right? People are scalping their pledges for, you know, twice the price for the deluxeifications because it's on the hot, and the get it now dopamine click on the cart is really high, that if you're just patient, you'll be able to get it a lot cheaper. Arguably cheaper than a lot of crowdfunding backers once it dies down. But therein lies the dilemma. Can you wait while the grass is greener, right? Let's just go right into that because, you know, I wasn't going to mention it a whole lot, but this hint water is really begging me a drink or two. Slay the Spire, right? Again, it's coming out this month. I guarantee it's going to be there. I guarantee that's probably going to sell out because the other thing with conventions that I harped on at the beginning of this channel that I am not a huge fan of, right? I'm a big fan of supporting small publishers. At the same time, as a consumer, I have a hard time going to said conventions in general. I was going to finish that sentence though. Hard time going to conventions and buying things. The once or twice I've gone to my local convention, you know, just like conventions do, woo, goes the price, right? Like an elevator. And that's the big issue, right? So if I can get Slay the Spire... If I can get Slay the Spire for $115 online right now, how much do you think it's going to be at the convention? And truth be told, I have no idea, right? We're speculating. I'm wrong. So ignore this because I guarantee if I say this, it won't be the case. But as with a good number, we'll say, illustratively, metaphorically speaking, comparison-wise, I would imagine I would not be shocked. The get it now factor, the have it in my grubby little hands factor, that I can walk out of here and feel superior factor. Because, again, speaking for me, $130? $140? I don't know. I don't even know what the MSRP is offhand, but I know it's $115 at a lot of the pre-order online bigger game stores right now. So, again, it's not that in and of itself is the problem, right? But it's that this in combined with the fact that people go to these conventions and then do that with half a dozen games, 10 games. I mean, I guarantee a week after Gen Con, we'll say, that you're going to see the exact opposite side of things. The haul videos. Now, again, say what you will. You want to spend your money that way? Great. But, okay, $10 to $15 for every game of the 10 you picked up or the 100 you picked up. Sorry, 12 you picked up. You didn't pick up 100. No, nobody would do that. Right? That adds up. And I'm saying, you know, conservatively, $10. You know, that's over $100. Again, from a disposable income standpoint, you probably have $100 difference to support publishers in that sense. At some point, though, so that's where you have to start asking yourself, apart from actually, you know, the thing that people want in this video, talk about the mechanics of Slay the Spire and the fact that it incorporates the asymmetric deck building as a multiplayer, previously only solo game, climbing the tower, mitigating your deck and your artifacts and fending off the enemies until you reach the final. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fine. I mean, people love the mechanics. People have really enjoyed the mechanics, especially how it's comparatively both the same and both different a little bit in that sense compared to the video game. But therein lies the other problem and my big crux and why I have not been able to pull the pre-order trigger, because you know how good I am at retail buying. It's like $7 when I bought it on my Switch. How much is the I can play it in physical form? And how much is that I can play it in a group cooperative setting, even though I love cooperative games, right? You know me on this channel, love hard co-ops. How much is that worth? Is that worth $7 versus $115? When I've got all of this other stuff sitting around there, right? Ease of accessibility, can I get it played factor? Do all of those equal, we'll say in this case, as the example I made up, $108? Is that $108 worth of stuff? I don't know. It's for you to decide and me to rant about. Foundations of Metropolis. I will be having my review come out. Truth be told, hopefully, I put that review out before this video. So, spoilers! It's the same as Foundations of Rome, right? It's just a cardboard edition. But for, as we just mentioned, cheapskates like myself, we'll call frugal, but I'm a cheapskate. I like to demean myself in the videos a little bit. I'm a little bit frugal. My wife is the opposite, right? She came back from her trip and she's like, here's a present for this child. Here's a present for this child. Here's a present for this child. Here's a second present for all of the children. She was gone for like 2 days. And so, you know, with this, right, this is the accessible price-wise version of Foundations of Rome. And again, I see the light. I see why people liked it, right? Just like with Distilled. I know why people like this mechanic. It just works. It's a little bit different of a tile laying Civ-esque, very vaguely building style of things. The big question for a lot of people at this point is, one, is he tempting fate and going to drop his water onto the computer? But realistically with the game, is it going to get the expansions that people are saying that they clamor for in terms of variability and replayability? You can't have it without having 37 expansions, Chris. Because believe me or not, you know, that's what the forums are full of. But either way, it's going to please you. If you wanted that game and you played it at somebody else's house and you said, that is a great game. I wish I could own that game, but I'm glad you bought it for that much money and not me, right? Well, now you can get it from that side of things. So that's going to be going out there. And yeah, it just works. It's dynamic. It works. The biggest issue or criticism I have for it, I thought it was sitting around here somewhere. I probably put it back elsewhere. I don't know. It's probably like sitting right behind me, obviously, either way, is that it doesn't really store well. You know, the storage is, you know, I threw out the insert. That was the only way I could get things in terms of box lid closure and fitting to happen. So how do you feel about them apples? I don't really care personally, but I know that's going to grind some people's gears. The one from Devir that is super interesting to me is also not the one that you're probably thinking of. We'll talk about that one in the list I'm just not really interested in as a whole, but has the most thumbs over on the hotness side of the Board Game Geek Gen Con preview, which again, it's a total crapshoot when you're looking at that thing, because all it does is entice publishers to tell people to go over there and thumb it so it gets to the hop, so it gets more of that, right? It doesn't actually tell you anything in terms of whether or not you'll like the game or how popular it actually is, but it's just a pseudo fake popularity. Anyway, sorry, ranting sideways. Cities is where I was going with that one. Cities is the one I am looking at from Devir side of things and going, okay, 1.8 rating on Board Game Geek. Woo! My heart's fluttering in terms of just fit from that side of things. Just teasing. I like that style of game. Some of you guys are going to look at that and go, it's too light, it's too random, it's too chaotic. Chris, that's not very... Whatever, okay? You know what? I'm okay with this. So you're doing similar to Foundations of Rome, right? You're best projecting your area, and you're going 2 to 4 players, 40 minutes total, action draft, resource management, and 8 rounds where you're doing, you know, essentially just that. Scoring, featuring, building. You're just laying them down, but in this game, you can actually stack them up too, so they don't all just have to be adjacent. And you get an achievement, you place your disc on the board at the end of the game, well, you get all you get from the scoring and the achievements. So it hopefully fits a little bit better, like a slightly better version of Between Two Cities, if you will. That's kind of how I'm looking at it, with a little bit of Foundations of Rome. So I'm intrigued. This is more my style rather than the other one from Devir that's getting all of the attention of the Devir heavyweights, which we'll get to later, of Rock Hard 1977, right? Yep. That's the title. I'm sticking to it. So that is out there as well. The other one that's been lurking on that side of things, of the at least heavier-ish medium weight, because it's Gen Con, not Essen, we'll get to that later this year, is Windmill Valley. And so that's the other one that's got a little bit more of a step up in terms of complexity, but still not really too much from Board and Dice. And I've talked about this one previously, right? Building windmills, planting tulips, coming from my motherland, right? I'm 100% Dutch, by the way, in case that wasn't completely clear, because this used to be, when it actually did have anything worthwhile growing on top of it, it used to be blonde. So yes, all 3 of my kids are blue-eyed and blonde, right? Right? So 100% Dutch on both sides, seriously. Anyway, you're turning wheels, going through your actions, and you've got like 6 different actions you can take, and they list them all out in the Board Game Geek description. Enhance your wheels, plant your tulips, build Build your windmills. Don Quixote. Sorry, get distracted there. Hire helpers, and then get contracts, as well as visiting the local markets to trade your resources in for other conundrums. So a little bit of everything. It says somehow this is going to be incorporating the rondels and the wheels, at least with some route building too. I'm intrigued. Multi-use cards. And again, it's about a 2.8 rating. So it's, well within my depth of being able to actually understand it and not be over my head too much. So again, from Board and Dice, I'm intrigued. So, we'll see where it goes. The other one that gives similar vibes, but intrigues me more so, we'll put this in the heavy category for all you heaviers that were wondering which heavy game I was going to talk about. From Czech Games, getting some attention, getting some love. 4.0 on Board Game Geek, The Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. For some reason, I was trying to compute in my head the first take when I was talking about this. The Search for Extraterrestrial SETL? That doesn't spell SETI. Anyway, but that's what they've got going on. Again, from a multi-use card, resource-driven style of game. 200 cards, essentially. This gives me like Arc Nova in space-esque vibes, just in the sense that you're having that many cards that you're going to be whiffing through and trying to institutionalize and utilize in that sense. So upgrade your equipment, analyze your data, boost your telescope, increase your supply of resources. I mean, theme, sure. I think when people think of this theme, are we actually going to be like aliens and finding aliens and that sort of thing? Or it's actually the dry side of things as a scientist where you're trying to search for it and the actual process of searching, not the searching and finding like you may be thinking off the top of your head, right? So that is going to be the difference. And I guess it's saying it plays homage to planetary exploration, astronomy, and the search ongoing. I don't have a freaking clue, folks. Again, this reminds me of the other one with the really cool looking board. Oh yeah, that's what it was. The Suchi game Evacuation, where the idea of this game absolutely sounds fantastic. And you can sit here and go, oh. And then I watched a little gameplay and I read a little of the rules and I said, oh my goodness gracious, sugar nuts. This is too heavy for me, right? This is a 11 on the 1 to 10 scale of not gonna getting it played. So that's kind of how I'm looking at SETI 2 right now. But you know what? It's tempting nonetheless, right? So I have to include at least one of these or so in a video like this, right? You know what I do. I do what I do. Let's go over to things more my weight, things I'm slightly familiar with, because I did a review on the Britain version of Undaunted, and this is Undaunted 2200 Callisto from Osprey. So rumor has it that this one's going to be coming out there standalone, adapting the core gameplay, which again always intrigues me. How do you adapt a gameplay enough to make it different, and how do you adapt enough to make it that other people who love it or potentially don't like some of the nuances in the first one have both appeals in that sense, where you get something different so you buy them all, or you get something different and this one is the one that drags you in from that side of things. And maybe that's just the sci-fi setting, 2-player map, 4-player map, solo game, maneuvering, seizing the dominant high ground, Anakin, and using your formidable mechs in this one instead of your biplanes to gain control. And you're doing it for resources. So what, though, based on that description, is going to be different mechanically? The only thing that leakers, or peekers, I guess I should say, they found some Amazon links with some Amazon pictures and stuff like that and descriptions, was that it says a unique board that cuts down on setup time. So, yeah, standees, too, to go along with it. But separate modular hexes might be out the window then, because that was a big issue with Britain in the sense that, you got to have all the right numbers in all the right ways and all the right configurations. So, designers have confirmed that that's what they're going with here over on the forums, which is kind of good, I guess. 4 double-sided boards, as we were just talking about with those various player count boards. A D8 and a D12, though, in this system now. So, again, we'll kind of see where this one goes. It's going to be interesting. Again, it's going to get comparisons, whether or not that's good, bad, or the other, right? Because I feel like some of these successors, they use the name to get the recognition, even though the gameplay isn't as similar. No, sometimes you're playing with the name to make the recognition to sells the stuff, but is it that different? Again, you're gonna have, you know, critiquing cherry birds on both sides of things. You know what? I don't know why I said cherry birds. That's what you get on this channel, right? So that is gonna be going on in some way, shape, or form from that aspect of things. So we'll see what they've got in store for us as well. The other one that's actually more intriguing, actually, some of these are more intriguing at the end of the video here, right? I'm spiking up instead of spiking down like I usually do, right? Arcane Wonders is putting out in the Dice Tower Essentials one called Video Game Champion, right? Early 90s 16-bit video game champion, just like the NES game that just got released. I'm playing those old competitive ones online to see how well you rank. And, you know, you're getting in the 16-bit grid selection system, activating actions in columns or lines, and managing your resources as you go along, including the IOU chips. So, I don't know, complete games, poker-style chip combinations, new releases, and various mission upgrades. Unique, it says, to each playthrough. And again, this one's been on my radar. It's got a 2.8 weight rating. It's coming out in America. I think it's been out in a couple parts of the world elsewise, and they kind of picked it up in that sense. So we'll see what that entails, and, you know, if it looks as good as it could potentially. I don't know. We'll see. Now, let's go a little bit sideways. Let's talk about a few expansions really quickly before we end the video with a few more main games. 3 expansions that I have on my radar. 3 expansions that I expect to be coming out around this time. 2 of which are confirmed. 1 of which is not confirmed for Gen Con. But we're going to speculate away, because that's all this video is rampant speculation, right? So before you go out and buy, just rampantly speculate with me. First up, Clank Catacombs. Clank Catacombs is getting an expansion. Did you know that? Yeah, Clank Catacombs is going out there and it's saying, okay, we have more Clank Catacombs, Lairs and Lost Chambers. I mean, more tiles, right? Unique powers in them, trophies to go along with it. I mean, I'd like Clank Catacombs. It's sitting somewhere in a pile over there behind the camera. I don't really know, honestly. I haven't played it in that long. I haven't played it in about a year. I like Clank. I don't love Clank, I've realized. And so I should probably play it again to figure out how much I like it on that scale of like to love. But truth be told, I could trade it away today and not feel like I'm missing anything too. So I have mixed feelings on this aspect of things, and I don't think one tile type as a new thing is going to change my mind, personally. I'd love to be wrong, or I'd love to find out that someone else I play with it really loves this game in that sense. Or I'd like to find out that someone else who I play games with loves this game, and then that would make me want to keep it even more so. But I'm just kind of like in the, yeah, this is good. Yeah, this is good, you know. Not the, yeah, this is good, but, you know, the tone of, yeah, this is good. It's kind of the resigned resignation of, this is good, right? So you know what I'm saying. So that is the first expansion up. The second expansion is from Ares, and it's going back to Lord of the Rings in the War of the Ring, the card game. And the Fire and Swords, if I'm remembering correctly. I think that's the name of it. I always screw the name of that one up. But that one has also been announced that if you pre-ordered it, I believe they're going to have copies there. But it's one of those, like I said at the beginning of the video, how many copies are available? If you didn't pre-order it, are you going to be able to snag one or not? As just offering more depth of gameplay for the card edition in the first place. And a lot of people don't like the card edition. You know what? I am not one of those people. I actually like it. And a little bit more from that side of things to give just a slight amount more variability, even though they're, you know, doing the whole, if you pre-order and you buy the whole set combination, which is one of the few ways you could pre-order it initially, at least prior to me filming this, well before prior to me filming this, of getting sleeves and the tin, the metal tin, then we'll give you, I don't know, what was it, 4, maybe 5 promos at most, right? And, you know, FOMO completionist to me is going, ooh, Chris, those promos, they're going to be hard to get. Oh, should you do that? They could be like the Dune Imperium promos where they just don't come available, or they only sell them on their website for like 10 minutes and then people scalp 4 or 5 promos for $50 instead of the 10 or 12 they went for. And I said, no, Chris, you don't play that game enough. You love it. It's not going anywhere in your collection. But you don't need 4 promos, right? That's Felicia Day promo Dead of Winter all over again in a nutshell. Great card. Fantastic powers. Awesome. Awesome, awesome card. like Felicia Day a lot, but it was one character in a deck this thick, and I said, we never get to play with it. It never comes out in terms of drawing it. So it's more I'm saying I have it rather than I'm actually getting to play with the card in the first place. So I ended up selling it, truth be told. And that'd be my fear with this same thing too. Not that I'm going to sell them, but like, would you actually utilize them when I'm already buying this expansion to add more content as a whole? And it would be a minutia or significant fraction comparatively. So that is expansion number 2. Expansion number 3, truth be told, of all 3 of these expansions, the most likely to end up in my collection, probably the cheapest of all 3 expansions, and the only one that I do not have guarantee that's going to be coming out at Gen Con, but I believe it's getting retail released either like shortly, if not right around that time, right after. And that is Radlands, Cult of the Hype. I mean, Chrome. So, right? More camps, more bases. Fits in the other box. You a fan of Radlands? This isn't going to change your mind one way or the other. Just more camps. More camps. Game where everything is overpowered, so nothing is overpowered. Head-to-head, bash them up. Deplete your opponent's resources and bases. That's all this game is. It's head-to-head dueling, smash them up. Everything is crazy, so you know what? Rinse, repeat, get screwed, play it again. I like it. I like it a lot. It's one of my favorite 2-playing games in that sense. It's not going anywhere, and I'll eventually end up with a copy of it. But whether that's Amazon Prime Day 2025 when it goes on sale for like $8 as opposed to the 15 or 13 it's going for online right now, I don't know. Again, the urgency to get that, not at all whatsoever. So that's out there in addition. So that's it for my interested list. Now let's talk about games that aren't going to be as interesting for me, but if you're tuning into this part of the video too, games that are probably going to be more interesting for you, or that you're going to hear a bunch about, right? First up, you know what? I already alluded to it. I did more than allude to it. I talked about it, right? Rock Hard 1977. This is the next and the latest of the Devir heavy worker placement styles, right? It's the 70s. You're a rock band. You're making music. You're performing. You're doing all of those things somehow with a worker placement thematic incorporation, right? It's too heavy for me. Not a huge fan of the heavy worker placement. Not going to be really good at played. But it's going to appeal because Devir, like, people don't know that, and I'm telling you something that you don't know, right? Devir has a very good track record on these heavier Euro side of things in the last 2-3 years. And so I think you're in good hands. And then I'd say, as I said in another video recently, where is your thematic incorporation connection? How? Which one? What's the difference? Because mechanically speaking, I can't tell them apart. So are you going to go for the theme that appeals to you more? Again, 70s metal music, right? 80s metal music? No interest. So it's one of those themes that I will let other people play out. Then, Gaia Project expansion, confirmed over at Gen Con. The Lost Fleet. Do you need more Gaia Project? We just saw Age of Innovation last year as a respin, retheme, retread style of things. Can you have enough of this? Probably not if you're a Gaia Project fan. So more technology is what they're doing. More factions, 4 new factions, 2 new planet types, protoplanets and asteroids. New layout, new holes where ships of the Lost Fleet and new planets are going to get placed. Smaller sector tiles, the edges around the outside. More advanced technology, more round boosters, more round scorings. And they say, for all of you hardcorers, that it's going to be having some faction balancing. So, and a slightly different covering up of tiles for lower player counts from 1 to 3. Does that intrigue you? Do you want more of it from a good thing? Well, there you go. You can see for yourself very shortly. The other one that I see popping up all over the place already, Gnome Hollow from Levity Games. Building mushroom rings, harvesting mushrooms, and bringing them to market as a tile worker placement style set collection game in the first place, but a bit on the lighter side. We're going 2.0. Spatial arrangement of these mushrooms and flowers so that you can, well, place them, get your action combos, and develop the rings of the mushrooms in the first place that you need. OP picked this one up, and so that's why it's getting a wide release. There's already a bunch of reviews out if you want to go over and look-see, and it's been spread out over the last 6 to 9 months, so this is kind of what we're going to see as a smaller game gets a bigger window and see how people feel about it as a whole. Again, like, what's with the rise of mushroom-related games in the last year and a half, right? It's like, people were like, hey, I really like talking about the environment, and I really like talking about the earth and the nature theme, but you know what? Let's make it super specific. And you know what? Let's choose mushrooms. Right? I don't know. I'm just, taking crazy pills here as a whole. But that's another one that's on my radar. The other one, again, that I, on the surface value, have absolutely no idea what to expect with this one because of just the word jumbling, combination, set collection, spatial arrangement, puzzle style things, is the sequel standalone to Calico of the Knitting Circle, where you're kind of just knitting in cats, right? And doing the same sort of thing. This makes me think just all along those lines, right? With the word salad play that this one has, just like Calico, just like Cascadia, just like Verdant, just like the upcoming Nocturne. Like, okay, there's clearly going to be differences fit to print, like all of that line, right? What are the differences with this one? And the description has me just scratching my head right now. So I imagine you're going to see a lot of people heavily interested in that one. The other one that, again, I think it's just too far out because they're actually doing crowdfunding, but you can demo it because it's only a demo. That's why I'm not throwing it on the list. I know, I'm sorry. But it's a demo only. Nature, upcoming from North Star. So we're going to see. I know, Ross, I'm sorry. You're only demoing it since you're getting the mention at the end of the video here, but that's upcoming in crowdfunding later this year. And they're going to have the modules there. And there's a really great description of the Board Game Geek situation and the modules and how the modules are going to be adding things and how you can mix and match and what each module potentially does in the sort of evolved game, if you will. Other significant demos of significance? Right. Big games that are going to have big presence, but you can't buy. You got Shadowborn Games, Avalon the Riven Vale. It's coming to crowdfunding later this year. Prototypes are going to be in the wild very soon. We're going to see what an area control Shadowborn spin on the previous, pedigree of Oathsworn can really show. So there's going to be some hands-on there. Also, apparently the next one from Druid City Games is maybe going to be making rounds demo-wise there as well, if I can get the words out here. Madcala, two-player, asymmetric, Wonderlands War-esque Mancala version mechanic style of things. We'll see where that one goes. I think that one's supposed to be coming to crowdfunding later this fall as well, but again, haven't seen anything more concrete in that way. Staying with the King Arthur theme, though, back and forth, I guess, because I kind of threw one in the middle there. We also have Tales of Arthurian Knights, a play off of the Tales of Arabian Nights coming out from WizKids. They're going to be demoing it as well. Speaking of reimaginings, because I can't really say re-themes, in the footsteps of Marie Curie from Sorry We Are French, in the footsteps of Darwin. A different spin on sort of the multiple set collection resource management mechanic that we saw with their original, which was relatively well received as well. And then also we have Everdell Duel is going to be demoing from Starling Games. Again, how do you feel about a two-player version of it? Do you really think it's going to be that much dramatically different? Are you going to be that interested if you're an Everdell completionist in the first place? And then also Ziggurat, the upcoming retail release from Leacock and DeVoe, I believe. Again, going to be kind of demoing there as well because that has a fall retail release. So we'll see what sort of spin they can do from a legacy side in that aspect of things. And to be clear, the premise of that game is, well, there's basically an abandoned temple, essentially, if you will. That's kind of what the name is implying. And there's rumors of a dragon, legendary in the past. And all of a sudden you're seeing some spirits and rumors and things along that. And you have 6 chapters to investigate what's kind of going on. And you're hoping to find a dragon. Will you? We'll see. But again, things to demo, but not buy. Things to inject as hopium for later this year. So the other one, did a little bit of my research, digging. Again, not anywhere on the thumbs list over on the Board Game Geek page for the previews. But I saw it, so we're talking about it as an honorable mention here. It is LA-1, which, again, I don't mind it, but, finding a game sometimes or describing a game with a name like that, anyway. It's because you're doing cooperatively, collectively, detective cases and solving them in, well, you guessed it, right? Nevada. Anyway, Los Angeles. And you're doing, they say, Mason Doyle Investigations is the name of the company. Resolve the cases in the post-apocalyptic LA is actually what they're going for. Individually, part of a campaign, multiple cards, you send investigations in different directions. So they say, as my big issue with a lot of these games in the first place is, hopefully you can play them more than once with different outcomes and different situations presented along the way. But being able to do it, right, and actually wanting to do it are two different things. You know, I love, you know, some base gameplay of something like Destinies, right? And you can play that. You can play that plenty of times. You get different outcomes, you know, in terms of what order stuff is happening and where stuff. But you already kind of know the of it in the first place, right? So that's why I look at this and I go, okay, how is that going to be different? What is going to be your twist on this to make this, I don't want to say crowded genre, but this one-off type genre better, different, or why should I buy it other than the ones that are already established that if you're seriously interested in this style, you could get sooner, easier, and know more about? That is what I'm not getting from what the information is that's out there from that standpoint. So that's just where my head is at with that one as we round up my top whatever this was for the ones on your radar. Can't forget about World Wonders as well from Arcane Wonders. Then, you know, the Mundo expansion that I reviewed earlier in the year. It's going to be widely available at Gen Con 2. Just, again, adding additional just goodness from an expansion content. Small box, really pleased by that one. Box is about this big, incorporates very nicely into the base game. You can throw it out because I know that's what you do with your expansion boxes, right? You don't have them sitting in a separate closet. No, you wouldn't do that. But it just gives you more of that. It gives you a slightly different way to score them if you really want. But then it just gives you more of a good thing, which is the best part of that game in the whole. So that is also going to be there. So that is it for the side of things here at the end of other games that you're going to be aware of, that you should have on your radar, that you can know about, and that are going to pop up in between now and whenever. As a side note, very, very end here. You know, I did this because I was curious. Gen Con 2023, the games that got the clicks, the thumbs, right? How are those doing? Where are some of those at? And I was actually, for once, relatively surprised. Let me pull it up for you. So again, this is last year's, right? Lost Ruins of Arnak, the Missing Expedition expansion. Cascadia Landmarks, Three Ring Circus. Three Ring Circus was making waves there for a little bit. Haven't heard a whole lot of it out since. Race to the Raft, still a favorite cooperative game of mine. Barcelona, very good game from the same designer of Windmill Valley, Danny Garcia. World Wonders, as well as Earth, the Great Western Trail, but that one is the New Zealand edition. Last Light, Point City, Age of Innovation, Fox Experiment, My Island. Nahora from Czech, they're stealing from last year. Sea Salt and Paper, Ticket to Ride Legacy, Sail, or the Raw Edition, Jerusalem Expeditions, Distilled, Forbidden Jungle, right? So a lot of those games on the top of this list are, you know, still relatively recognizable. So there you go. That's it. That is Gen Con, my thoughts on it, the topics that it brings along accordingly, and the games that I'm going to at least be watching from afar. So there you go. What do you think? What's on your radar? Again, like I didn't include some of these other ones that are on the list right now that are getting some thumbs, like Pagan Fate of Roanoke, right? I've got my copy sitting right down over here, you know, still in shrink. Ha! But I mean, like, this has been widely available for crowdfunding backers in that sense, right? For a while. And I've seen it be available elsewhere to buy limitedly. So, like, I didn't include that, right? Like, that just, again, like, my weird criteria as a whole. But there's stuff like that that I just said, okay. But I'll mention it. You get a little shout out, Worm Gold here at the end. So that's all I got. Peace out, stay classy. Have a great freaking day. See you around.